All right, the traditional story was that the Democrats were controlled by unions and activists who were trying to help the poor. Republicans, we were told, were in the pocket of big business. But a new book provides powerful evidence that President Obama, despite his anti-business rhetoric, is bought and paid for by powerful Wall Street concerns and corporations hungry for bailouts every bit as much as the Republicans. That book is by my buddy and Fox colleague, Charlie Gasparino. Charlie, as you say in the subtitle of the book, this is an unholy alliance between Barack Obama and Wall Street. Come on. Unholy alliance between a Democrat that's half socialist and Wall Street guys that are supposed to be capitalists?
It's funny you say that. I mean, listen, I love writing books about ironies. And one of the grand ironies of the last sort of 3 or 4 years is how these alleged capitalists, the guys that run the epicenter of capitalism, fell in love with Barack Obama. I mean, this is a love story. Now, as in all love affairs, you know, there's some rocky points, which there is now, and I go through that in the book.
Yes,
why the rhetoric has gotten some of these sort of the top guys in finance so angered at the Democratic Party, and they're starting to give some to the Republicans. But when it really comes down to it, Judge, there's two things here. Wall Street has never been a place where capitalism ruled. It's been a place where crony capitalism
that is the message of the book. Here's the book. I'm showing it. And if you really want to know and understand how we got to where we are in the Wall Street model, you need to look at this. Now, I'm reading it, and I got to tell everybody, this does not read like an economics textbook. This reads like a novel. So-and-so was sweating. So-and-so was hungry. So-and-so was tired. So I'm reading on page 107. Paulson's gone. McCain hated them. Bush was gone. Now, quote, you're talking about the mighty moguls of Wall Street. But at least they now had Obama. They all reminded themselves during their fancy lunches at San Pietro, then the most expensive restaurant in New York, and expensive dinners at the Four Seasons in the days and weeks after the election. A man not much different from themselves. A man they could do business with. What do you mean, not much different than themselves?
They are all, I know these guys. Jamie Dimon, who runs J.P. Morgan Chase, Larry Fink, who runs BlackRock, the biggest money management firm, the gentlemen who run Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein and Gary Cohn. I'll go on and on. The vast majority of the people that are running these big firms are progressives. I know that they're politically progressive. They're socially progressive.
You mean liberal Democrats, Woodrow Wilson progressives,
absolutely.
Nanny state governments.
Absolutely. And they, you know, Jamie Dimon has railed for open borders, has railed for health care entitlements. John Mack specifically began supporting Hillary Clinton during the campaign. Then he switched to Barack Obama.
John Mack, the former head of J.P. Morgan.
Former head of Morgan Stanley.
Morgan Stanley.
Because of the health care. He wanted universal health care. And you go down the line. That's where they are politically. Why? And by the way, they all go to the same schools.
All right. Why am I scratching my head? And why are a lot of people saying, listen, Gasparino is a great reporter. This is news to me, over the fact that Wall Streeters are not capitalists. They're not Ayn Rand. They're not Ron Paul. They're not Milton Friedman. They want as much welfare as other people do.
Judge, all you have to do is look at it this way. Who do you think finances our deficit?
Wall Street.
I mean, who finances the municipal bonds? Who underwrites the municipal bonds?
Wall Street makes a fee on all that.
By the way, who's going to create the trading of the cap and trade sort of new commodities that are going to come out of the cap and trade energy program that Obama wants to leash on us? It's Wall Street.
Right.
I can go down the list.
Was it always this way? Was J.P. Morgan himself? Was John D. Rockefeller? Were those guys progressives or were they capitalists?
I think to a certain extent this is an evolution, and as government grew to enormous size, Wall Street saw government as just another payday. Listen, look at the mortgage bond. The very fact, and that's what blew up the entire Wall Street and the economy. This mortgage bond, why was that created? It was created by Wall Street because the government wanted people, everybody, even people that couldn't afford homes, to get a mortgage. Because if you take the mortgages off the balance sheets of the bank, you can put it in these bonds.
Are there any free marketers? Are there any Ron Pauls on Wall Street?
There's one guy that I met.
One guy!
In the green room of Fox recently, who I'm going to have on Fox Business Network. His name is Bob Bonelli. That's the only real free market guy I have ever met on Wall Street.
I got to tell you, the book is a very fast-paced read. It reads like it's a novel. And it's got a little treat at the end, which is Charlie's appendix. Every phrase, every acronym that you want to know about, there's a definition of it in here. There's a little bit of a Gasparino spin on each definition, but the definitions are in here. Charlie, it's a great book.
Thank you.
I loved reading it, loved chatting with you about it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You even mentioned Cavuto and me in this book.
I can't believe it. What brought me to that? state.
Thanks for joining us. Back with the plain truth in just a moment. We have just over 3 weeks to Election Day. Congressman Ron Paul says it may be the beginning of a revolution. It is a revolution we need. You've heard me say this before. I'll say it again. We are halfway to socialism, and we need to kick out those in government from both parties who want to write any law, regulate any behavior, and tax anything that they want. The government continues to violate the Constitution right under our noses. This past week marked the end of the government's TARP program that was proposed by President Bush and voted for by many Republicans as well as Democrats. Bush promised that the $700 billion he would have the Treasury Department borrow from the Chinese would be used to purchase troubled real estate assets, mortgages that folks couldn't pay, and homes and buildings that were in foreclosure. It was a fraud. Not a single mortgage and not a single home or building was bought. Instead, the feds bought stock in the country's 60 richest banks. Most of the banks didn't need federal dollars, and many tried to refuse them. But the feds have ways of making offers one can't refuse. Look, when the Constitution was written, the framers understood the temptation to redistribute wealth, and that's why they prohibited the federal government from doing so. Both Hamilton and Jefferson, who never agreed on anything in public, agreed that when the public treasury becomes a public trough, the people will send to Washington only those who promise to bring home the biggest piece of the federal pie. They were right. This week also marked startling revelations about 9/11. Will we ever know the truth? What did the government know, and when did it know it? Colonel Anthony Schaefer, a former Army intelligence officer, says that his bosses in the Pentagon created a team called Able Danger that knew about and followed al-Qaeda in the U.S. and then mysteriously disbanded the team in January 2001. He also revealed that when he tried to tell all this to the 9/11 Commission, the Pentagon, perhaps under influence from the CIA, silenced him, and the 9/11 Commission wouldn't take his calls. Michael Scheuer, who ran a large unit in the CIA that was charged with finding bin Laden, says he never heard of Able Danger, and the CIA never interfered with anything. Who's telling the truth? I'm going to ask this question every day on Freedom Watch. Here it is. Does the government exist to work for us, or do we exist to serve the government? Is our property truly ours, or can the government take it whenever it wants? If the government works for us, shouldn't it follow the Constitution, and shouldn't it tell the truth? And when it doesn't do so, shouldn't we be rid of it? You can catch me Tuesday night filling in for Glenn Beck on the Fox News Channel, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern, from New York, defending freedom. So long, America.